Today we have, on behalf of all of us, I'd like to welcome Brother Shitu, all the way from the UK, and I know that you will definitely enjoy hearing him. Brother Shitu has been a devotee of Bhagwan for over 40 years, starting in the Bal Vikas program in the United Kingdom, first as a student, and then followed by serving as a teacher for over 10 years. He studied history at London University and has worked in asset management for the past 20 years. He was appointed by Swami as the first international youth coordinator in 2007, and Bhagwan blessed him to travel around the world and conduct zonal youth conferences. Brother Shitu has served on the Central Trust of the United Kingdom and is currently serving as the Central Coordinator for Europe. It's absolutely wonderful to have you join us today, and we absolutely look forward to hearing you. Jai Sai Ram.
Beloved Swami, my loving pranams at your beautiful lotus feet. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, and my most loving young adults and Bal Vikas children, Jai Sai Ram. What do you think Bhagavan will be remembered for most? The rings and trinklets produced with a wave of a hand? The vibhuti and honey manifestations in countless homes around the world? The hospitals, the institutions, the water projects, the schools and the museums? Will he be remembered for his ashrams or the Sai movement in each country? Or will he be remembered as a modern-day guru? Our beloved Swami will be remembered for the personal transformation that he has brought about in millions and billions of people throughout this world. Brothers and sisters, we are living examples of the Sathya Sai phenomenon, the greatest event of the 20th and 21st century. I am so grateful to our beloved Swami and the Sri Sathya Sai Global Council of USA for making it possible for me to come all this way to share my story, my thoughts and my experiences with my American Sai family. Each one of us has a unique experience and a unique story regarding those lovely intimate moments with our beloved Swami. Swami likes us to share these so they not only inspire and motivate people, but usually there is a valuable lesson and teaching that accompanies each experience for the person as well as the listener. I am but a single grain of sand on Bhagavan's vast shore, mingling with countless others like you with a unique tale to tell and experiences etched by the tides of life. Together we form the boundless beach where every grain holds a divine story, whispering its own sacred truth in the grand narrative of existence. William Blake, the great English poet, beautifully put it, "To see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wildflower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour." The Buddha was right when he said, if you want to understand the universe, look deeply into the smallest grain of sand. Therefore, if you want to understand our Swami, look at that grain of sand, and enveloped in that grain of sand, you will find his majesty. Brothers and sisters, my life changed when Swami came into my life at the tender age of 9 years. Swami has been so kind to me over the years, and some of the experiences that I will share with you are a reminder to all of us of his omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. We may forget him, but he will never forget or forsake us. Unlike many of you, I guess I needed a little more work in becoming the person Swami wanted me to become. Over the years, it was my job when I had the good fortune of Swami calling me to his feet in the interview room. At the end of the interview, Swami would give me a bag, a basket to hold, and in that basket there was lots of vibhuti packets. So my job was to hold this bag and walk around while he would take a whole heap full of vibhuti and give it to each person in the interview. One day, I had the courage. We were very close. His nose was almost touching mine, and sometimes when he turned to speak to a devotee, his hair would brush against mine. So I took the courage and said, "Swami, I want to be with you." Swami paused, and I thought any minute he's going to say yes. What did Swami say? No qualifications, and moved on. Swami is an extremely tough taskmaster and always expects perfection of us. But despite my many imperfections, he remains very patient, nurturing the hope that one day I will rise to meet his divine expectations. Now come with me on a journey back to the 1980s, to England, to a quiet town in London. In a modest home lived a devout couple and their only child. A 9-year-old boy sits late at night gazing out of the window at the stars, pondering the existence of God. Did he know I existed? Did he love me? Where was he? And why had he not revealed himself to me? That night, with an extremely heavy heart, I laid my head to sleep, feeling alone and empty. That night, this man in an orange robe and fuzzy hair came into my dream. Everywhere I looked, I could see his face. It was embossed in the stars, in the sun, in the moon, in the planets, in the stream, in the hills, in the mountains, in the animals. Everywhere I looked, I saw this beautiful, radiant face. Then the scene changed, and there stood this beautiful being dressed as an astronaut. Then he changed his clothes and he wore an outfit of a barrister. He changed again, and there I saw this beautiful being with fuzzy hair dressed as a cowboy. Little did I know that morning when I woke up very confused by this dream, pondering who this person was, that my life was about to change. Swami says regarding dreams that he wills a dream as a means of communication with the dreamer in order to grant him or her courage, confidence, and clarity of thought. Swami says, when I appear in a dream, it is to communicate something to the individual. It is not merely a dream, as is generally known. Do not think that these incidents you experienced in your dream are stretches of your imagination. I was giving you answers thereby to all your doubts. Brothers and sisters, let's be very clear. I am not someone that particularly has regular dreams of Swami, maybe 1 in 5 years or so. But when I have a dream, it's quite profound and very powerful. In fact, at the start of this year, on 1st of January 2024, I had a dream after many, many, many years in which Swami came to me. I was sitting in darshan with my wife, and Swami came up to me and he said, "I like it when you talk." Fast forwarding to Thursday the 30th of May 2024, standing in front of each one of you at Tustin Sai Centre, I really do hope he still feels the same. You see, I was always different. I was always very quiet and content to stay in the background. I wasn't the brightest in the class either. In fact, my teachers had informed my parents, who had such high aspirations for me, that I was just average. This revelation came as a great shock to my Guju parents, who had probably dreamt of me becoming a doctor, a barrister, or the next Rishi Sunak. A hope held by many parents, but they were sadly disappointed. Both my parents came to London in the 1970s with nothing but their faith in God. I remember my mother placing a piece of string around my neck before she went to work, and on that string was a key attached to it to let me in after school because they work such long hours. Like many of our parents and grandparents, they have made countless sacrifices, settling in a foreign land, unfamiliar with the culture or language, all so that we could have a better life. I vividly recall my mother praying to our family deity, Mother Durga, saying, "He is your responsibility, please look after him." Our parents have always possessed an unshakable faith in God and continue to make so many sacrifices for us, enabling us to enjoy the lifestyles we have today. I share this with you to illustrate how simple and ordinary our lives were. We were not Baba devotees, nor did we belong to a center. Yet I harbored this deep yearning in my heart that often ached. It was a profound, inexplicable longing for something greater, a divine presence that I felt within me, guiding and comforting me, even in the absence of formal devotion. However, as you all know, when Swami enters one's life, nothing is ever quite the same. That orange flame of love permeates every atom of our existence, whether we realize it or not. The moment we associate with divinity, transformation has begun. So my cousin started attending some Sunday school in our local area. I was very intrigued. Why was I not asked to attend? I nagged my parents to let me go. So off I went the following Sunday, inviting myself and ending up in some devotee's home, covered with photos of that man I had a dream of. But this time, strangely, he wasn't dressed as a barrister, an astronaut, or a cowboy, but in a beautiful orange robe with afro hair. Now let's fast forward a few months. By this time, I had joined Balvikas. It was thanks to attending Balvikas that I gained the firm foundation and strength to become who I am today, equipping me with multitude of skills. Where my school teachers had failed, my Balvikas gurus had unwavering faith in me. They saw my potential and nurtured it. I attended every class diligently and practiced everything I learned. You see, from the moment I started Balvikas, total transformation had begun. I vividly remember being put forward for many lead roles in their plays during festival times. This greatly boosted my confidence and strengthened my character. How clever Swami is, as each teaching component in the Balvikas program is designed to impact various aspects of our human psyche. Suddenly, my grades improved overnight. I was in all the top sets, winning awards and certificates. This remarkable change was a testament to the profound influence of Balvikas, along with that unseen guiding hand of our beloved Bhagavan. When I looked at these beautiful roses on your beautiful altar, when I was sitting there, it reminded me of a very beautiful story. How many of you ever wonder, does our Lord sit on this chair? I always did growing up, from the age of 9 onwards. Did he really sit there when we sang bhajans? What was he doing? Was he walking around? Did he just come in and come out? Did Swami really sit there? One year, it was my birthday, and the center had organized bhajans just like you have, and our bhajans in our center used to take place in someone's home. So it was my birthday that day, so I woke up very excited. My parents had left a birthday card for me which I opened, and how very boring when your parents leave money in a card for you. So I was very excited. I thought any minute there may be a knock on the door, somebody may give a present, the phone will ring, my cousins may be ringing, but nothing. And throughout the day, I would go and pick up the old-fashioned phones that we used to have, put it to make sure that the phone line wasn't dead. Nobody called me. So anyway, I got ready, and a devotee came to pick me up to take me to the bhajans. I got to the bhajans thinking, I bet the center has planned a surprise for me. Went inside, nobody said happy birthday. So I thought, okay, this is good. This is going to be a big surprise at the end. So we sat down, the bhajans started, very beautiful bhajans. And because I was quite young, the center president would always put me in the front of Swami's chair. And my job was, at the beginning of every bhajan, to stand up and say, on behalf of all the devotees present here today, our most humble salutations are the beautiful lotus feet of Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, and then I would sit down. And I did that. The bhajans were beautiful, the bhajans finished, and I kept looking to the left where the door was. Any minute, I bet you they're going to come with a beautiful birthday cake. Nothing happened. My heart broke, my heart sank when they started doing Loka Samasta. Everybody had forgotten my birthday. And birthdays are very special to me, as they are for every child. And then I knew nothing was going to happen when the center president announced, we will now meditate for 1 minute. So I sat there as everybody meditated, and I said to Swami, I don't care that everyone has forgotten my birthday, but how can you, my beloved, forget my birthday? And then something crazy happened. They had placed a rose like you have on the armchair, and this invisible beloved Swami flicked it, and it went flying and into my lap. Those elders who don't like to meditate, who had their eyes opened, suddenly gasped and said, Swami, because the rose literally flew and landed on my lap. Brothers and sisters, that's our Swami. Others may forget, but he will never forget or forsake us. The power of the name. Shirdi Baba says, my eye is ever on those who love me. Whatever you do, wherever you may be, ever bear this in mind. I am always aware of everything that happens. Sometimes we pray to God and wonder, does he really listen to our prayers? Can you imagine how many people must be praying to him, asking for favors? In the Narada Puran, it is said, in this age of Kali, there is no religion than glorifying the Lord by utterance of his holy name. And that is the injunction of all the revered scriptures. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. The name of the Lord is so powerful that it made the heavy stones float in Treta Yuga when Lord Rama and his army had to cross the bridge to Lanka. It transformed a robber into a sage, Rishi Vashishta. And in this Kali Yuga, it makes our Lord, our Swami, drop everything and come running to our rescue when we are in trouble. Now let me tell you about a time when I was inches away from death and how the Lord saved me. It was Father's Day. We had gone to the Indian sort of version of London. My mother wanted to do some grocery shopping. So my father parked the car on the main road and he ran in to get a few groceries. Me and my mother were sitting in the car. I think we were on our way to a wedding or some sort of family engagement. My mother was sitting at the back, I was sitting in the front, and it was summer, the window was down. And we were just sitting there waiting for my father to come back, and suddenly I felt something very sharp on my neck. And this man started shouting to my mother, take your gold off and give me your money. The more he shouted, the more agitated she became, and she started crying and shouting, and the more she did that, the more angry this man got. And I could feel this very sharp, very big knife go into the side of my neck. And obviously when you're young, it's a lot thinner than it is now. And the more she screamed, it went in, and I thought, any minute it's going to puncture and go right through. I remember the words of my Balvikas Guru, whenever you were in trouble, think of him. So I started calling out, Swami. I must have just said it once. The man became very agitated. He shouted at my mother and said, the next time I ask you for something, give it. And then he walked away. How strange. That, brothers and sisters, is our beloved Swami. Do not be fooled. He's not sitting in Puttaparthi. He's not in India. Whenever we call him, our Lord comes running. It reminds me of another story. When I was growing up, I had this intense desire to see Swami, and I wanted to go to Parthi. And to be called to Prashanti is truly a gift that one should never take for granted. Now, this one particular time, I didn't want to trouble my parents. Our parents have lots of bills to pay and lots of, expenses. And I used to silently pray to Swami and say, Swami, I want to come to you. Please call me. Find a way. Because if you have faith and if you trust him, I had faith that he will find a way. A letter came through the door that the government was running a scholarship that students could apply to. They would fund the scholarship. So I filled in this application form and I wrote that I wanted to go to Prashanti Nilayam. Now, this governmental scholarship, I can't just say I want to go and see God. So I wrote an elaborate answer about how I wanted to go and do research into SSEHV, Sathya Sai Education and Human Program. And I wrote a little bit about as much as I knew about the SSEHV program. Filled the form in, sent it. After a few days, I got a response back, which said out of 1,000+ applications, 10 people had been chosen to go to meet the Mayor of London in the very grand office that they have in the City of London, London Guildhall. So off I went in my suit, and I must have walked in to a room this size, very, very beautiful, and thinking that, this interview is probably one person, and I was very confident that I could win this person over. I walked in, and to my horror, there was a panel of 12 people. And in the middle of the panel sat the Lord Mayor with all his gold chains in this very beautiful, ornate room. The chair was put right where Jean is sitting, far away from this panel. So I sat there, and then it started. One after the other, they started blasting questions about SSEHV. I did not know much about SSEHV, because remember, that was just an excuse for me to get to Parthi. I prayed to Swami because my Guru had told me, my Balvikas Guru, that whenever you are in trouble, you just have to pray to Swami. Just say, Swami, please speak through me. Please act through me. And Swami will do the rest. So I did that. One after the other, I was quite surprised. It was a very surreal moment that I was able to answer all these questions. The more questions they threw at me, the more brilliant answers that I gave back. And then the Lord Mayor said, thank you very much, we will let you know. Every morning, I would wake up and run down to see whether the post had come. Days went by, weeks went by, months went by, and I was so dejected. I went in front of the altar in our house and said, Swami, how can you not want me to be there with you? I love you. I have no other desire but to be with you. So then I went about my way, and then the post came, and there was a letter, and it had the crest on there. But when I held the envelope, it was very thin, and I was very disappointed. I was expecting it to be, you're always taught when it's a padded letter, it's very formal. But when it's normally a very thin letter, an envelope, it's probably a rejection. So with a very, very heavy heart, I opened this letter, and it said, congratulations, you have won the Frank Denning Travel Scholarship, and that they would pay for all my travel to Puttaparthi. But then I read further, and the devil is always in the detail, that after they wanted me to do a 10,000-word dissertation on the topic that I had chosen. Oh, Swami, I did not know anything about Sathya Sai Education, Human Values. I just wanted to come and be with you. So I used my brains and quickly wrote a letter to the then international chairman of the organization, Shri Indulal Shah. And I wrote to him that I won this wonderful scholarship in SSEHV. Please can you help me? I would like to go to Parthi. not expecting a response, because why would Indubai want to write to an unknown person in the back of Beyond in London? Within days, I got a response back from Indubai to say, come to Mumbai, I will see you. So in that time, the check came from the government. I booked my ticket and landed up in Mumbai. Boy, was that tough. So for every day, for 1 week, I had to go and meet Indubai. And I don't know how many of you have heard of Indubai or know him. He is a very, very, very strict person. And I would sit in his office and he would lecture me for 2 to 3 hours on SSEHV and to gauge my response. After that 1 week, he said, okay, I think now you're ready to go to Puttaparthi. So I landed up in Puttaparthi, and then as we all have this problem, I got to the accommodation office and they said, sorry, single man on his own, young boy, we can't give you a room. What to do? Swami, there was test after test. Thankfully, a group from UK arrived, and they managed to put me in with that group, sharing a room with a few of the other boys. Swami was very kind. And I remember, so that summer, so Swami called, so let me go back. So darshan happened, and Swami was coming, and then he stopped in front of me and said, where is your group? So I said, Swami, there's no group, just me. And then he said, go. And my heart started beating. So I got up, went into the interview room, and Swami was very, very beautiful, very, very kind. We didn't talk about SSEHV, thankfully. And he made it possible for me to spend the whole summer at Swami's primary school, being there for the assembly, meeting the teachers. It was almost as if I was like a Sai student for that summer. How lovely that the Lord responds when we have the intention to be with him. And this really reminds me that, dearness to God is not always measured by physical nearness. Now, many people around the world think, what is closeness? Closeness gives us happiness, closeness gives us joy, closeness constructs love. We want to be close to our children, we want to be close to our partner. Yes, this closeness makes us very happy. We crave for it. In family circles, closeness means affection. Closeness is a sort of expression of concern. Closeness is comfort. Closeness means so many things to so many people. But in respect of Swami, it should be different. If anybody says to you, I am close to Swami, I am close to God, be very careful. You cannot claim to be close to God. It is a folly to think this. To be close to God is only an imagination. To be close to Swami is an expression of pride. To be close to God is just an expression of ego. God is not an object. Swami is the subject. God is a phenomenon, not a person. However, spiritual closeness is different from physical closeness. Physical closeness is proximity or nearness, whereas spiritual closeness is dearness to Swami. Spiritual closeness brings God. It makes him walk towards us. Physical closeness demands that we run and occupy the front row in darshan. That's the reason why so many of us fail. Spiritual closeness demands that stage when God himself responds, when God himself walks towards you, comes towards you, alerts you, apprises you, and yes, elevates you. I think he finds himself within us. That is what you call spiritual closeness. Spiritual closeness is humility. It is humble. Spiritual closeness is what we call adoration, respectfulness, reverence, friendliness, loveliness, merely being a friend of God. Kindly understand, physical closeness can make you a friend, but spiritual closeness will develop a quality of friendliness. I was 16 years old when I first physically met Swami. I knew him from the age of 9, but I hadn't visited Puttaparthi until I was 16. The first question that he asked me in the interview room was, who is your best friend? My reply was you, Swami, and only you. Swami looked around in the interview room and said to the people, see, this young boy made Swami his best friend, and he has not even met me until today. Transformation can take place by merely living in his omnipresence. You know, we think we have best friends in life, but when things get tough, they leave us, and they sometimes often upset us. But when you make Swami your best friend, he never ever lets you down. In fact, he helps you. He helps you meet the challenges head on. And boy, have I had many of those. Challenges never cease, no matter your age or who you are. In fact, they often intensify as you progress. Sometimes I felt that the challenges and obstacles are even greater when you are a devotee of Swami. As you pass each challenge with total and utter faith, Swami will always guide you and reward you. Swami says we must welcome his tests as an examination into our spiritual development. Now let's pause here and tell you a little bit more about that beautiful first encounter that I had with Swami. When I walked into the interview room, as a child, I was prone to getting mouth ulcers, or crankers, is what I think the American term that you use. So I had a whole mouth of ulcers walking into that interview. And in the past, growing up, I always was prone to stomach aches. Now, parents out there, you know, when your child tells you you have a stomach ache, why is it that parents say, oh, you know, forget about it and go and do something else? They never believe you. So I always got this tough love for my parents. Whenever I said I had a really bad stomach ache, they were like, no, you'll be all right. You know, go and get on with whatever you're doing. So anyway, so I walk into this interview, mouth full of ulcers everywhere. And Swami was very loving. He waved his hand, and out of his hand came out this beautiful Mysore pak, which was very, very hot. He took a piece and put it in my mouth. And all I can say is I've never had a sweet like this ever. And those of you who know me, I have a terrible sweet tooth, and I love anything sweet. So anyway, so he put this piece in my mouth, and then he went round distributing it to all the others. Throughout the interview, he would ask questions, we would joke around. And you know, the Swami that you see when he closes that door and bolts that door and switches the fan on is a very different Swami to the one you see walking. The Swami you see walking in darshan is when he is that Purna Avatar, when he is that full majesty and the power, and he's connecting with each one of you. But in the interview room, he's just like each one of us. So we had a lovely conversation, and as he would ask me certain things and I would get the answers wrong, he would slap me. And then he asked me that magic question, the one that we always pine for, what do you want? And I had heard that he used to ask many devotees this question, what do you want? And it's no different to when Brahma appeared, when some ascetic has done, tapasya for hundreds and thousands of years, or Lord Shiva appearing and saying, what do you want? So the Lord said, what do you want? And I had prepared this answer from the age of 9. And you know what? Of all the things that I could have asked for, when the Lord said, what do you want? And what did I say? A ring, Swami. Swami retorted back and said, your wife will give you a ring. And took my throat and wobbled it around like that. It was painful because of the ulcers. But brothers and sisters, when I walked out of that interview room, all my ulcers disappeared. So you're probably thinking about, what about the stomachache? What happened there? So as I went to sit down, customary you have a little cushion, Swami has a cushion in the interview room. So he kicked it out of the way and he said, boy, come forward. And then throughout that interview, I became his cushion and he put his feet on my feet. And as he was busy talking to everybody, I would feel this kick in my stomach. And it was quite unbelievable. Were people watching? Is this what Swami did in an interview? With his foot, he would just kick me in the stomach like that. And it was very bizarre. Only to say that With Swami's blessings, I never had a tummy ache after that day. There was another very beautiful episode that happened in that particular interview. A lady had come in a wheelchair. This lady had never walked, ever. And Swami looked at her with piercing eyes and said, "Get up." The woman got very confused. How do you tell the Lord of the universe, I can't? How do you tell the Lord of the universe, I've never got up? And Swami was very insistent, get up, get up. At one point he got very, sort of impatient. So Swami stood up and he started walking towards this woman in a wheelchair, waving his hand. And from his hand came this hot ash. And he started sprinkling it on her knees. And he kept saying, get up. He told the people next to her, get her up, with such force. So they got this woman up. She stood up, having never stood up ever. And he looked at her legs with piercing eyes, and then said, close their wheelchair. Brothers and sisters, only to say this lady walked out of the interview room and never had to use a wheelchair again. When we are faced with obstacles, we must surrender it to Swami, no matter how difficult. The moment you surrender to Swami, Bhagavan gets activated into action. Now let me share the most profound and hardest test to date he has put me and my wife through, and the experience that almost scarred us for life regarding my son, and how the whole world almost came crashing down. Don't think just because you are a Sai devotee, the best singer, the best sevadal, that you are immune to his tests, that you are immune to his challenges and obstacles. Being a devotee of Swami does not mean you are immune. It means that his grace is like a painkiller during times of trouble. It numbs the worst bits that you're going through. So listen how Swami took us to the abyss of no return, but brought us back. In 2001, after Swami's birthday, on the 24th of November, he called us in for an interview. He took us inside the inner interview room and then proceeded to say something that shocked us. He said, "Come back next year with son." And we were thinking, because we always went back every year during the April period, because we had a love of when Swami was at Kodaikanal and Whitefield. So in my mind I thought, doesn't look like that's going to happen, coming back with a son. Bearing in mind we had been married for 5 years and we had no children. But Swami was adamant, come back next year with child. So if you fast forward now to April 2002, my wife had fallen pregnant. Now the little tailpiece of that in the interview room in November, when he said come back next year, he did something very strange like this. He did that. And he said the tubes were tangled. Now you will be all right. He did it with his hand just like that. So we came back in April, and you don't know my wife, but she's a lot shorter. She's very slim and quite petite. And we were just coming up to 3 months, so no one really knew that she was expecting. Out of the blue, Swami, we were in Whitefield, and one beautiful morning, Swami called us in for an interview room. So we went inside, and we were seated. Swami came in, and as customary, he would close the door, bolt the door, put the fan on, put the light on. And even before he had turned around, he looked at her and said, "How many months?" So Rita said, 3 months, Swami. Swami said, Then he looked at her sitting down and said, very firmly, "Do you want a boy or do you want a girl?" Rita didn't say anything. And Swami looked at me and giggled and said, "I know she wants a boy." So then he took us in the inner room, the inner interview room, and we sat down. And the conversation became very deep. He was talking about some spiritual things. And then out of the blue, I said, "Swami, we surrendered this child at your lotus feet." Swami became very happy. He closed his eyes, and then things that I had read in a book. there are many books where they write about Swami going into a trance. So Swami went into a trance that felt like 10 to 15 minutes. His eyes were closed and all that moved was his hands like this, very slowly, like he's watching a TV screen or there's like a reel going past. He suddenly woke up and said, "Have no fear, this child is my responsibility." When Rita was 8 months, she didn't feel well on the day of Dasera. She felt very uneasy and she had this really horrible feeling. So we quickly went to the hospital and they did the scan, and the nurse doing the scan felt like she took forever. And then what made it worse was that she said, "Hang on a minute, I need to go and get somebody." So she went and got a consultant and he started doing the scan. And then he said, "I'm very sorry to tell you, but I don't think this child has been growing because my wife is very petite." He said there's not enough amniotic fluid in the stomach. For an 8-month-old, it doesn't look like this baby has grown. The heartbeat is very, very faint, and I think we're going to need to do an emergency C-section, or you're going to need to give birth. They prepared us for the worst, that you would have to give birth to a dead child. We didn't know what to do. So then we came out and we had to go to another hospital. We jumped into a black cab. I had no money on me. We had to stop somewhere so I could get some money out of an ATM. We got to an A&E and it was late at night. There were no doctors. So we were taken into this room and Rita was put onto all these machines and we just surrendered. And we said to Swami, "Whatever your will, Swami, we will take it because we love you." That night, as you know, I don't really dream of Swami. Swami came into my dream. He started walking down this beautiful wooden spiral staircase towards me. And as he was coming down, he started waving his hand, and out of his hand, water started flowing. I clasped my hand, and out of his hand came out a great big Shivalingam. Swami stopped by and said, "Have no fear, everything will be all right." I quickly woke up, it was early hour of the morning, and I said, "Rita, it's going to be okay." She didn't have much hope because obviously at 8 months, nothing was moving inside, and she had that pitted feeling. So then in the morning, the doctors came, and can you believe in London, they couldn't find a hospital bed to do the operation, for the after recovery. All the hospitals, all the beds were full. Then there was talk of flying us to Scotland. I mean, this was a Shakespearean tragedy that you could only have read in a book. Then I remembered that I had medical private insurance that we get through work. So I said to the consultant, "Can this help?" And he said, "Why didn't you tell me this in the first place?" So they made some phone calls and they said, "We want you to go to the Portland Hospital." I had heard about this hospital. The Portland Hospital is where Princess Diana had given birth. It's where the royal family give birth to their kids. The sheikhs from UAE come, and I could not believe that this is where we were going. But we still had that awful feeling because remember, we had to prepare for the worst disaster ever. So imagine this scene, then there was no ambulances, they were all out. So then they said, "Look, there are no ambulances available, but if you pay some money, we can get a private ambulance." So we said, "Do whatever you need to." So they called a private ambulance. And imagine this scene, the Houses of Parliament, Big Ben, traffic is coming this way, and our ambulance is going the opposite direction because we had 30 minutes in which to get to the private hospital before the last operation and before the consultant went home. We got there. And then something really strange happened. As we were being taken down to the theatre, the doctor said, "Do you have any music that you want to play?" Now, I did not know that doctors play pop music while they're doing their operations. Thankfully, Rita in her bag had a CD of Swami singing. I think that CD is called Embodiment of Love, where he's singing all these beautiful poems in Telugu to music. So she gave him this CD, and can you believe, these doctors are getting ready, and blasting in the background is Swami's voice as he's singing. The doctors looked at each other thinking, what is going on here? Then they prepared us. Madam, we're going to do a C-section. The child that's going to come out, or the baby, will not be fully formed, and they prepared you for the worst. Don't expect the baby to cry. And they sort of put a sheet. I was behind her, and we prepared to get ready for the worst. We prayed to Swami throughout. Whatever you want, Swami, we surrender to you. Needless to say, when the baby came out, it wasn't a small little size of an apple, but a great long sausage. And they put the baby on this table. It was lifeless. There was no sound. There was nothing. We paused, and then suddenly this baby started crying. What started off as a whimper got louder and louder, and the screams of this baby could be heard. Swami had brought the baby back. Swami had saved the baby. True to his words, this child is my responsibility. And he saved the little boy. So we named him Baby Sai, because Swami had said that he would name the child. And fast forward now 5 years, during the World Youth Conference, 2007, a week before the conference, we were all there very early, making preparations. One afternoon, Swami calls Dr. Goldstein to the podium. And what seemed like for 15 to 20 minutes, Swami is talking to Dr. Goldstein. Poor Dr. Goldstein is not understanding what Swami is saying, and Swami keeps repeating the same thing. Dr. Goldstein then rushes to me where I was sitting on the portico, and he said, I don't know what Swami is saying, but he keeps saying, 5 years ago, I was with Mrs. Chudasama. 5 years ago, I was with Mrs. Chudasama. He kept repeating this. He said, Shitu, do you understand what Swami means? Because he just keeps saying that. I said, oh, Dr. Goldstein, 5 years ago was when Achintya was born. So, respected elders, brothers and sisters, Swami was with us during the most awful time ever. But when you have faith in Swami, when you trust him, Swami, that's when he makes the impossible possible. Once in an interview, Swami spoke at length about his tests. And I'm going to read out to you what he said. The more Swami tests you, you will have to excel with its results. As exams approach, you will be afraid, scared of exams, but ardent devotees of those days were ever prepared for these tests. They would say, I want to be tested by you, Swami. Swami says his tests are his taste. This test of mine is taste of God. You should ask for these tests, exams, to come quickly. Never ask for them to be delayed or postponed. Sooner you face these tests, the quicker you will ascend to a higher class. You are bound to be tested. You should face these tests to be promoted. So welcome these tests. Once I was sitting with Swami, and I was staring at the palm of his hand while he was talking to a devotee. He suddenly turned round and looked at me and said, Boy, do you know what is in this hand? He continued to say, the whole world, this whole Jagat is in my hand. What is Jagat? Jagat means coming and going, coming and going, coming and going. He continued, do not think about the world. Do not spend your time thinking about the world or about your relationships to individuals. These are all impermanent. They will not last. Pay attention to that which lasts, to that which is permanent. All things involving the world and human relationships have to do only with the body. The body is like a water bubble. The mind is like a mad monkey. So do not follow the body or the mind. Follow the voice of God. It was quite a profound conversation. You know, down through the ages, God has spoken to his devotees in many ways, through thunder, burning bushes, angelic messages, prophets, and divine incarnations. There are even stories in the Bible about God speaking to Elijah through a whisper. Though Swami is physically no longer with us, we must remember that he continues to speak to us, guide us, and teach us. We merely have to go within, and in the stillness of our hearts and minds is where we will hear his voice. We must never forget the work which he has started through us will always continue. We must remember that Swami's work through us in two ways: the work he does in us and the work he does through us. In Swami's very unique style, the work he does in us always results in the work he does through us. This work he does through us accomplishes one central thing: it makes us divine. Therefore, we must all be confident that he who began the good work in us will continue the work in us so that we may become good and shining lights to serve others. It reminds me, back in the day, I used to take youth pilgrimages to Prashanti Nilayam. And we used to do medical camps and a lot of seva activities, and Swami used to be very, very happy. So one time we got back, and I got a call from the then Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, to say, "We've heard that you are doing all these amazing things, and we would like to meet with you." So I got a formal letter to go to St. James's Palace to have an audience with the Duke of Edinburgh, the late Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip. Now, his private secretary, they always tell you, when the Duke comes, you do not go forward, you do not speak to him, you don't put your hand out. He may talk to you, he may not talk to you. And I was ushered into this room. There must have been about 3 or 4 of us. So I had no hope that why would he want to speak to me? In walks the Duke with his entourage and his private secretary, and he makes a beehive straight towards me with his hand out and said, "Ah, you're the organization that is doing so much. Tell me more." So I said to him that we draw our inspiration from Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. He said, "Oh, very good. Tell me more about Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Who is he?" So then I did my little elevator pitch on the magnitude of what Swami is in a short space of time and the wonderful transformation that he's bringing in all these young adults. He was very pleased. And the meeting finished. A few weeks went by, and then we got a beautiful invitation from the Queen's private secretary to attend afternoon tea. So the Queen used to host, and now the King Charles does it, once or twice in a year, a garden party in their back garden. And their back garden is not like our back garden, it's like a whole city. So a beautiful invitation to attend this tea party. So we went to this tea party, and then we were taken to one side where we were then told that we were going to get a certificate for the work that the organization had been doing. So somebody came and they gave a talk about, the work that, some of the organizations that had been chosen. And then we had to go up. So me and Rita went, and then, when our names were called up, we went forward. A certificate was given. And when I looked at the certificate, it did not say Sri Sathya Sai Service Organization, United Kingdom. It just said Sri Sathya Sai. That's the glory of our Lord. Another time, let me just check the time, a meeting with Swami, he asked me, "Who was with you before your birth? Who is with you after your death? In the beginning there is God, and at the end there is only God. God has no beginning and no end. He is beyond birth and death." It is truly a divine marriage, God and devotee. And it reminds me of a story, the tailpiece, if you remember that first meeting where it was my job to hold that basket of vibhuti, where I asked to be with him, and he said no qualifications. A few years later, I was with Swami in an interview room, and Swami had said to me, I was sitting down, "Do you want marriage?" That's the worst thing you could have asked me, because I only wanted to serve Swami and be with him. So I said, "No, Swami." And then he started mumbling, and he was not very happy with me. And then for the rest of what seemed like 30 minutes, he totally ignored me. There was a couple from Latin America, and Swami very beautifully performed their wedding. He got them to sit right in front of them, and he waved his hand and materialized a beautiful Mangal Sutra for the lady. Then he materialized 2 rings which they put on each other. Then he started with his hands, and this beautiful flurry of rice grains just started coming as he showered this couple. They were in heaven, we were in heaven. Swami started chanting these wonderful Vedic verses. It was such a beautiful scene. How lucky. I was standing behind Swami as he was doing this. He suddenly turned around and said, "Do you want marriage?" I said, "Yes, Swami." He said, "With whom?" I said, "With you, Swami." And he slapped my chest and said, "Good answer." I'm going to end now. And I just want to end on the importance of going to Prashanti. Connection to Prashanti Nilayam is so very important. Some may argue that realization can be found anywhere. But I reply back that realization is not something easy. It's far more complex than the mind can fathom. Only a guru, a god, in our case Swami, can act as that catalyst to speed up the process. You have to go to Prashanti and live it to get those benefits. Merely thinking about vitamin D or meditating on vitamin D is not the same as going into the sun and absorbing the powerful rays of the sun that produce this life-saving hormone called vitamin D. Relics or bones of the great masters contain within them powerful, healing, transformative divine energy. In chapter 25 of the Shirdi Sai Charitra, Shirdi Baba says, "Believe me that though I will pass away, the bones in my tomb will give you hope and confidence. My tomb will be speaking, moving, and communicating with those who surrender themselves wholeheartedly to me. Do not be anxious that I will be absent from your life. You will hear my bones speaking about and discussing your welfare. But remember me always. Believe in me, heart and soul, and then you will benefit greatly." Within the Catholic Church, many of the saints and their relics are worshipped. Many, many miracles are associated when the Catholic devotees visit these places. You can find the bones, the relics of Saint Peter, the Apostle, are housed in the St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican Church in Rome. St. Francis of Assisi, his relics can be found in Assisi, located in the Basilica. St. Bernadette of Lourdes, you must have all heard about the miracles that take place there. Hundreds and thousands of people go on pilgrimage to Lourdes, where this little girl had sightings of Mother Mary, and her relics can be found there. There are places in Thailand where the Buddha's knee can be found. Wonderful places of pilgrimages. There are over 51 Shakti Peeths in India, and you all know the story when Sati emulated herself at the disrespect that Lord Shiva was chosen. And Lord Shiva, so upset, picked up Sati and was taking her back to the Himalayas. But as he's taking her back to the Himalayas, pieces of her body are falling down on earth. These Shakti Peeths still today are so powerful. I had the good fortune of visiting one last month where it is said that Sati's upper lip fell. We had to walk up 500 steps to get to this temple. And even after the 500 steps, you can only enter this cave. It's this big. You have to lie down and you have to squeeze yourself in. And as you enter this beautiful cave, there you see the Devi herself. And the power and the ecstasy, all your hairs stand on end. And that's the power of just one lip. Imagine when we go to Prashanti, there are no steps to climb, there are no queues, but there lies the majesty of our beloved Swami. From top to toe, he's ever present, listening, guiding, loving, and helping each one of us. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, thank you so much for patiently listening to my story and the glory of our beloved Swami. I pray that you will take away some of the snippets that I've offered to you today as affirmation of his divinity. I hope it gives you courage and hope to all those of you who sit there and wonder if Swami really does notice them or if he loves them. You know, if Swami can hear my call far away in the midst of the British Isles, he truly hears all of your prayers too. We must always remember to follow and practice his teachings, love him unconditionally, and never let him go. Thank you for being such a lovely audience and for your generous hospitality and love. You know, as a boy, when I was growing up, I used to hear many, many wonderful things about Tustin Sai Centre and the great legends that have stood here and spoken to each one of you. And I feel very blessed to now be one of those. Thank you, everybody. Jai Sai Ram.
Om Jai Jagadish Hare Swami Sathya Sai Hare Bhakta Jana Samrashaka Bhakta Jana Samrashaka Bhakti Madheshwara Om Jai Jagadish Hare Shashi Adana Shivaya Sarva Prajapati Swami Sarva Prajapati Ashita Kalpalika Ashita Kalpalika Amadana Om Jai Jagadish Hare Mahalika Gurudeva Mayam Kalumire Swami Mayam Kalumire Thank you.